Most people try their entire life to attain their own version of the emotion happiness. And for what? To keep it, this is impossible. Even if one gets a piece of this supposed manna called happiness, it will only manifest a period of equalizing depressive emotion in the afterward. And that is the best case scenario, for this is the natural balance of positive and negative feelings. And even this natural balance is only obtainable with a naturally balanced heart and mind, a sound psyche, and introspection. Many do not have the constitution to keep. For most, happiness is sought after as a sustainable state of mind, one that keeps them from being sad or to thwart off any negative emotionality. In this, they are like a druggie trying to stay high at all times. And like these spoon-toting junkies, the happiness addict sacrifices all to get his or her fix. This, as anyone who has dealt with an addict of any kind knows, is so destructive that there is almost need for a new word to describe it. So let us understand this poison that is the emotion of happiness, and efforts of helping those destitute of reality to come clean. This is an intervention for such folk. So what is this happiness? Well, according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, happiness is an emotion that brings a state of well-being and contentment, a pleasurable or satisfying experience. Now the first part sounds nice, does it? Though some would argue contentment to be more neutral in emotive quality, as opposed to the purely positive connotations associated with happiness. So we can't say that contentment is synonymous. I would say that the latter of this definition is much more accurate, to have pleasure or satisfaction, although to be satisfied takes effort, and this would place struggle and hardship of some degree as an innate part of the pursuit of this happiness. And so, instead of a negative emotion following your happy state, it would precede it. So we can neither call satisfaction happiness. Now you might be saying, there are those whom enjoy the work it takes to make them happy, but those are few and far between, and so this is irrelevant, as most people today are unwilling to sacrifice to gain said happiness. We live in an era of instant gratification. So again, we see that happiness comes in tandem with its counterpart, the negative. However, this is not the definition of happiness that I deploy in my life. For in our society, the majority sees happiness as, like I have stated earlier, a feeling of pleasure, to seek with every action and to fill every moment. We are bound by the cost-benefit analysis filtering every effort in this pursuit. Therefore, the easier the form of happiness to attain, the more likely we are to make action toward it. For example, many people spend their free time watching TV as opposed to reading a book, but which provides more entertainment and which provides more enjoyment. Or the fact that most people would rather eat out than grow a garden, or even cook at home. Now, which of these has more satisfaction? In a way, my point is that happiness, as most people seek it, is nothing more than a pursuit of hedonism for the sake of distraction. So if we're looking to be distracted, why? Why are we looking to be distracted? If happiness is nothing more than the pursuit of pleasure as a means to be distracted, what is it we are turning our heads from? Let us first consider, what does one do when there is no distraction? We think. When a monk lives his life with no TV, fiction, literature, or even speech, he is forced into a world of introspection most of us has no concept of. He is immersed in a world of self-led thought. The goal of meditation is the same, to clear one's head of all distractions as to be able to focus the mind on discernible self-inflicted thought. Some would even go as far to say that psychotropic drug use can create such a state of consciousness, and would agree to a certain level, although the degree of focus is dependent on the strength of the mind in these cases. But the theme is the same, to focus without distraction. And as the Tao Te Ching says, one cannot see his own reflection in turbulent waters. So if the monk and cleric aim to think and the MTV Generation Xer aims not to, what is the difference between these two classes of people? What separates people who practice Tai Chi or Qigong from others that meditate on TV or booze? We know the goal of distraction from thinking is the futility of trying to remain happy, but what is the goal of putting aside instant gratification in efforts of attaining clear thought? What is it about thinking clearly that not only makes the average American so unhappy, but also drives the intelligent to practice it with such fervency? Self-direction, freedom from the bonds of ignorance and manipulation. The reasons those Buddhist monks strived for a clear mind is so that they could create concepts and texts of wisdom for the average person who did not have the luxury to dedicate that amount of time to such pursuits. It was philanthropy for the layman. But now we live in a society where the dullard does not even appreciate the wisdom so many have struggled to obtain and create. So many have sacrificed their personal happiness to gain said wisdom, taking solace in the hopes that it would be put to good use, but per usual, humanity has failed to learn its lesson yet. So happiness is destruction of freedom, and that happiness is also murder. I don't hate happiness for its own sake. There is no innate negativity in happiness. It is really the people whose entirety in life is to seek this happiness. That is selfish, destructive to those who they neglect, and hardly a noble aspiration. In being selfish, you negate the value of others' lives, and no one has the power to do that. Not the leaders of a country, not the taxpayers. The world will always have leaders, whether it be you, or me, or the other guy, because leadership has its benefits, like freedom from those who are led. In our American democratic political structure, the people are supposed to lead, but this is not so. Why? Because people would rather be happy than have to lead themselves. They would rather distract themselves from the fact that they are not leading their own lives than have to own up. So in focusing on our own personal happiness, you are accepting the democide our government is engaged in. If you are so afraid of learning what the people of this earth are struggling through every day, when you sit back at Starbucks and pay what an Afghan makes in an entire day for one cup of coffee because you deserve the best, your fear is the fuel burning the fire on those Afghan children's backs. As much as you say you want to save them from the tyranny of the Taliban, you haven't the knowledge to give the money to the people actually trying to help them due to your lethargy and being so selfish that you can't even do some research in finding out the truth behind events like American war escapades, history of the new country of the month we're bombing, or even the limits of your own government. They entertain you with Fox and CNN sitcoms, the donkey and elephant show, telling you all the while that you can be content and satisfied if you just keep paying them to protect your ability to exploit and murder the people in countries that haven't fallen for this demophiliac ploy, so you can get the best deal on the newest and best gadget. So keep sitting there and staring into the color box because you wouldn't want to see the blood on your hands, because that would rob you of your precious happiness. Ignore freedom, fuck other people, forget your responsibility, just don't make the baby cry.